from the dead, assholes! Again. I feel like we made that joke already.
And down goes Solo.
Anyway, welcome everyone, and welcome back everyone to our new, old, formerly review, now live react Star Wars Plus show of The Mandalorian, which is called...
We Have Spoken.
It's been a long-ass time since we've done this segment. 2 years at this point. More than 2 years, I think. And we've moved twice since then. That's how freaking long it's been. I mean, I knew we'd get a season 3 of Mandalorian. I knew it would be a long-ass time before that happened. But, man, it feels like ages at this point. We were, like, at peak pandemic when we first started reviewing it. And that was just season 2. Because we had already binged through season 1 and decided, yeah... we're going to review this and make it culture. And of course, we wanted to do this proper by making it a live reaction just like our other shows. Problem was...
the plague hit.
Yeah. Unfortunately, just days before the premiere of season 3, we... Exactly. We both caught the plague, albeit a few days apart. But the point being is that we were basically quarantined from each other just so we wouldn't reinfect the other once one got better. It's been 2 frickin' weeks we've been in self-quarantine. Like, this is the first time I've been able to touch him in 2 weeks now. Nah. So yeah, because of that, pretty much all of our live reactions were on hold, which sucks because we already had Bad Batch going on, and we just started Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur. So of course, the long-awaited Mandalorian had to get pushed off as well. But unfortunately, because live reactions take a lot of time for me to edit personally, and I already have the backlog of this show plus the other 2 shows, I figured it's better for us to just do a straight-up review of the first 2 episodes, which we've watched. And those episodes are called...
The Apostate and the Mines of Mandalore. If you did not watch the Book of Boba Fett, we don't blame you.
But I will say, if you're confused by the opening of Season 3... you're gonna have to watch Book of Boba Fett.
At least the latter half of it.
We're not recapping because we already did that in our live reaction to the Book of Boba Fett. We're not going through that shit again. So please watch that or watch the actual show if you want to know how the hell everything came up to this point in the beginning of Season 3. All you need to know is that Grogu's back with Mando permanently, and they have a Naboo starfighter as a new ship. Pretty much all you need to know at this point. So the first episode, I gotta say, this episode fooled me twice. And that was just in the first 5 minutes. So it starts off and you see her making a tiny little Mandalorian helmet. So you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe they're gonna induct Grogu into the guild or something. And they're making his little tiny Mandalorian armor like everyone wanted. But no, then they show this little kid about to go through a ceremony to become a Mandalorian. So you're thinking, oh, no, wait, it's a flashback. This is when Din originally became part of the guild. But then, no, we get a giant fucking crocodile right out of nowhere that almost eats all the Mandalorians until friggin' Mando just comes in on his Naboo fighter and blasts it to shit. So, yeah, 3 times it fooled us into thinking, when does this take place exactly? What is going on here? Not a good start. Fun fact, though, that I learned, the kid that was supposed to be inducted as Mandalorian, that was Jimmy Kimmel's nephew.
Huh.
But yeah, this opening already has me scratching my head and asking a million questions. First off, where did all those Mandalorians come from? Because didn't the, what's her name again? What is she known as? The Forgers? Didn't she mention that there was only like 3 of them left, or 5 of them, just a handful left? Where did the rest of them come from?
Yes, they were in different parts of the galaxy, and they all came for this one event.
Yeah, second, why did they summon all of them just for this generic induction event? Like, is this an important kid or something? Does everyone need to see this kid become a Mandalorian? And 3, why did they do it on this planet in this one location where there are giant freaking crocodiles? This makes no sense.
Well, I guess in one instance it does, because we have to recount what we discussed in Book of Boba Fett. We were recounting how, because of his getting the Darksaber, but he's also removed his mask, Din has to actually go and bathe in the living waters of Mandalore to be purified. So I'm assuming this is sort of the closest thing that they can get to that since...
They could have just had him walk in while she was working and just reiterate, hey, do I really need to go to these mines in order to redeem myself? I don't understand the opening, why we had to have that. I guess it was to show how fucking stupid the Mandalorians are, because you have a giant friggin' reptile that can swallow you in one gulp, and instead of taking the kids and running, they all opt to fight it, even though they're losing badly.
And also, you know, this water ceremony, this sort of baptism, since you're no longer able to go to Mandalore, you've basically found this new place, so
Wouldn't those waters become holy then?
Yeah. Can
you
we
pick
just,
your holy water now?
You know, instead of having Din go all the way to Mandalore, you think these waters are Mandalorian holy enough, why don't you just let him bathe in that? Do a whole new ceremony.
So yeah, as I mentioned, according to the armorer, yes, I looked up her name, the armorer, despite the fact that Mando took off his helmet for a good reason, despite the fact that he now has the Darksaber, which makes him King of Mandalore, and despite the fact that he just saved the remaining Mandalorians from turning into crocodile poop, she still does not consider him a Mandalorian, and is very determined and understands that, yes, he has to go to Mandalore. He has to go to these mines and bathe in this specific water in order to redeem himself. That is the only freaking way. So that's what sets off Mando on his quest to get to Mandalore. But before he can do that, he needs a droid in order to help him get to the surface and assess whether or not the climate is as poisonous as people have claimed. So that brings him back to Navarro, which has changed drastically even since...
They've gentrified.
Pretty much. We're going to see a building called Sopa Sopa or something like that. Point is, it's a lot better now than it was before. Even better than it was in Season 2. We see our good pal Grief, who is now High Magistrate. There's a difference, apparently. And here's the thing. He's offering Mando a real cushy situation. He offers to set him up in his own home with Grogu. He offers to set him up with a job as his new marshal because, you know, Cara Dune can't be in this anymore. We don't talk about her anymore. So he pretty much would have a cushy lifestyle. And heck, they even found mines that have material that would make them all pretty wealthy. So... yeah, like you said, he could live off the fat of the land, just retire. He doesn't have to be bounty hunting anymore. He'd actually put Grogu into a school, get him some knowledge and stuff. He could have a cushy lifestyle. But no. Mando has to prove that he is a Mandalorian. He has to redeem himself. And the only way he could do that is to get his good old buddy, IG-11, back from the dead.
Who they've made into a statue in the town square.
That really threw me, and it's both dark and funny at the same time. On the one hand, I'm glad they actually made a statue to him, because bro deserves a statue, after all he did in Season 1. But then we learned that they actually made the statue with the remains of his corpse. And so the only way to bring him back was to dismantle the statue and rip his corpse off of the statue. So all that was left was like half of a body with legs. And I gotta laugh, because it's like, would you take a dead body and smelt it into a statue and then remove half the dead body to resurrect someone? I don't know, that just creates like a whole thing in my head, like a Frankenstein-style like situation.
Given that it's a droid, it is a little different than if it were, say, you know, a flesh and bone.
I know, but still, I can't help but think of the parallel. But here's the thing, though. They actually do manage to reboot him somehow. Problem is, he's defaulted back to factory setting, which means he's once again a homicidal robot intent on killing Grogu.
Got that species that premiered in episode 9, the character like Badu or something, to fix the IG. And
Babu Freak, was it?
Yeah, Babu Freak.
Yeah.
Basically his species. They've got like a whole bunch of them in there.
I feel like this was the creator's way of telling all the pissed off fanboys that yes, the sequel trilogy is canon and these alien races exist and you have to deal with it.
It's fine. It's not like that. That was like the most harmless thing about
I liked Babu Frick.
Episode 9. Yeah.
I like Babu Frick. I thought he was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And I think it's cute that they have, like, their own little, like, workshop there that only they can fit into somehow.
But yeah, ultimately they tell Mando that memory circuit is fried. You need to get a new one, but that's going to be really hard to do.
Yeah, since IG units are apparently outdated by this point, which I don't understand how, considering we saw one in, The Empire Strikes Back, which was only, 5, maybe 15 years beforehand? It's like, heck, we have tech that still exists from 15 years ago, so I don't know.
Hug!
Hug! It's killing me! That was a cute scene, though. Just hugging. And at first I'm thinking, like, oh god, he's gonna eat him. I'd like to think better of Grogu than that, but we don't know.
Hug again!
No. Bad. Bad Baby Yoda. Bad.
His name is Grogu.
Sure, if you say so. Again, I like that little nod to the fans there. But yeah, at the same time that he's trying to get IG a new memory circuit, he ends up in an encounter with pirates who are apparently pissed off that Grief has, like you said, gentrified the whole area, has turned the bar that they had invested in into a school, and can't take the hint that, yeah, schools don't sell alcohol, at least not in the legal sense. So it turns into a whole street shootout, which ends rather quickly because, Mando and Grief are there and they both know how to shoot. But that leads into a later space fight as Mando leaves the planet and the pirates chase after him trying to get revenge. But then we have the good old asteroid field battle where he manages to lose half of them, get half of them to explode, and basically shoot down the rest. So there, that thread is done with. We got our space battle. We can call this Star Wars now.
So now we got to meet up with Bo-Katan again, for some reason.
I think he was just trying to fix his ship from the little damage he got during the battle, so I guess he went to her. Although, I guess it was just to establish her involvement in the second episode. But yeah, she meets up back with Bo-Katan, saying, he's going to Mandalore, and asks if she wants to come with, and she reveals that pretty much everyone deserted her at this point because she didn't get the Darksaber back, since it's Mando's now, and since they don't really consider him like an official Mandalorian anymore, then she's pretty much just shit out of luck in all aspects. So she's just sitting in her castle, just brooding, just being like, yeah, guess I'll break out the deck of cards. Nothing else to do.
Grumble, grumble, grumble.
brooding. So that pretty much ends the first episode, and I gotta say by the end of it, I was already like, yeah, this season's gonna suck, isn't it? Or at least it's not gonna be as good as past ones.
Yeah, I was definitely not sold on this one. I felt like they did a little too much in the comedy part of it, but like the story itself kind of suffered.
At least with the first two seasons, there was purpose into why Mando had to go to certain places, why he had to meet with certain people. And yeah, a lot of it was basically just fetch quest / escort mission, but there was purpose to it. Here, there's really no purpose. Like, he wants to be redeemed in the eyes of his clan, and it leaves you to wonder, why? Yes, I get it they rescued him. I get it they raised him, and he's had this creed he's gone by his entire life, which is apparently the only thing that gives him meaning. But he's met other people on his journey, and like I said, when he goes to Grief is offering him this lavish lifestyle as a thanks for helping free the planet from the Empire. He has a cushy setup, like he could just end things right then and there. But of course, if we did that, we wouldn't have a season 3. That's the only freaking reason he doesn't take him up on it.
It's so hypocritical, given how much Din wanted a good life for Grogu, and his stubbornness is just completely keeping him from doing exactly what he wanted to do.
Yeah, and unfortunately that stubbornness persists in the second episode. And of course, once again, we have to start the episode off on the wrong foot by going back to Tatooine.
At least. It's a short scene. It's just to get certain things to happen, and then we're off on Mandalore, basically, for the rest of it.
Plus, we're meeting up again with Peli Motto, and I mean, she's always great. I relish any chance to see Amy Sedaris again.
I love it. There's like a Rodian species. Yeah, Rodian. Trying to get his ship fixed, but it's a holiday. I forget what the holiday was called.
Oh, Boonta Eve?
Boonta Eve, yeah. So she keeps harping on, oh, I'm not going to be able to get this done for like 2 months, and you're making me work on Boont Eve. It's like, fine, I'll do it, but you better pay extra up front. So Dean does it. As soon as he leaves, he's like, okay, Jawas, we'll just get it done right now.
I love that woman. She knows how to play people. And that's kind of what she does here with Mando, too. Because, of course, Mando needs a part or something, or a ship, or whatever that's really hard to find. He usually goes to Peli because she and the Jawas are usually able to make it happen. In this case, they don't. As I mentioned, turns out IG is rather old unit. There's no possible way they can get a memory core for him. So instead, she decides to give him another droid to use.
R5.
Yes, and believe it or not, we actually know this droid. Deep cut here, well, not really, but sorta.
Back since the original movie.
Yeah, if y'all remember back in New Hope when R2 and 3PO
Or talking about the Jawas.
Yeah, and they were being sold to O and Lars. He chooses 3PO, but then a different droid than R2, an R5 unit, which had red coloring on it. And unfortunately, 2 seconds after he buys it, the thing blows up. Which is how R2 ultimately ended up getting picked instead. And I mean, thank God for that, otherwise none of this would exist. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is the same freaking droid that the Jawas sold to Peli, but of course she doesn't want to put up with his indeficient ass, so she pretty much pawns him off on Mando, saying that, oh yeah, he's built for adventure, he'll definitely be a big
able to
help.
go spelunking.
Meanwhile, this droid is basically shitting itself next to her, begging her not to let him go, and she just like strong arms him into doing it, because he's a little droid, what the fuck's he gonna do?
And then after selling it, and just as Mando's about to leave, she's like, oh, careful, you know, he's kind of messed up. It's like, wait, what? I thought you told me that he was in good case. What'd you say?
I can't hear you. I'm going through a tunnel. Good old Peli. But yeah, that's how he ultimately ends up with R5 as the droid to help him on Mandalore, which means his whole thing with trying to get IG-11 was, ding, entirely pointless. At least we got to hear Taika Waititi for about 2 seconds. I don't know, that was stupid. But anywho, off to Mandalore! Whoosh. So yeah, we get to Mandalore, and it looks as bad as pretty much everyone says it is. Everything's blown to shit. There's like crystal everywhere and stuff. Thankfully, after R5 checks out things, it turns out the atmosphere is breathable. So there's that at the very least. And he can theoretically touch stuff without it poisoning him. Problem is, R5 gets kidnapped straight away by these freaking, like, monkey things? I don't know what they're called. Apparently there is some wildlife that managed to survive Mandalore and has been living in the caves. So they pretty much are the obstacle Mando has to go through while trying to get to the mines. These things are everywhere. There's other things, like there's sewer crocodiles, again, more with the crocodiles. But he and Grogu are able to navigate down deep into the sewers up until Mando gets captured by some weird cyborg lice thingy.
It's like almost reminiscent of General Grievous.
Yeah, I looked at him like, General Grievous, are you alive? But no, it wasn't him. He's like this creature that has like a lone eyeball for a face or something.
It like goes from like this big tank into a smaller body that...
Yeah, he has like this giant tick cyborg thingy that he rides in. Like, it looks like, if you ever saw Wreck-It Ralph, those bug things from that game, that's what it looked like to me. So, Mando is captured. The thing is pretty much preparing to cook him alive in his armor. So it's up to Grogu to save the day. Yay! Grogu somehow manages to escape, gets back in the Naboo fighter, and with the help of R5, who they freed by that point, manages to find their way back to Bo-Katan. Of course, seeing Grogu, but not Mando, she knows something's up, and thankfully has enough sense to go back with him to try to save Mando. And oh boy, does she save him. Like, she even busts out the Darksaber. Like, holy shit. I can just imagine the fanboys of Clone Wars at that point as being, yes, yes, the rightful ruler returns.
Oh yeah, they also mentioned that before that, when Mando is actually using it, he notes that it still feels very heavy to him.
Yeah, that was a thing, like I said, from Boba Fett. Because apparently the Darksaber can tell if, like, a person isn't ready to wield it. And I mean, we kind of saw that in Rebels too, when Sabine was trying to wield it herself, and she noted how heavy it was, but as she got more confident, it became lighter. So it makes sense in that regard, because, you know, Mando's still conflicted as to whether he's a Mandalorian or not, whereas we know with Bo-Katan, she's wielded that thing before. She knows how to, like, get results. And she fucking, like, annihilates that thing.
Honestly, you might as well just give it back to her. I know you have to win it through combat,
which is bullshit, because that's not how she
That's not how she got it the first time, no.
Yeah, it's like, Sabine had no problem giving it to her, and she had no problem accepting, and she ruled for a while, but then things went to shit. So I guess she realizes, oh, I have to win it in combat, so that way I can legitimately rule and not cause my world to be destroyed by virtual bad luck or some shit like that. Even so, it's like, again, so contrived. So contrived. But yeah, she frees Mando, and despite the fact that he almost just got cooked alive, he still is dead set on finding the mines. Well, as it turns out, Bo-Katan knows where they are because she's been there before with her family.
Fine, I'll take you there.
I'll take you there to see your face and to realize what a shithole it is. So Mando gets to the waters, and I'm surprised at how fast this happened. I honestly expected him to draw it out a lot more than that. He gets into the waters, but then he sinks like a fucking stone. And I'm like, yeah, you probably should have taken off your armor. Just saying. But he sank deep. Like, holy shit. He must have sunk like 5 miles deep from how deep Bo-Katan had to swim just to rescue his ass. And that's one thing I have to note, too. If it wasn't for Bo-Katan, he would have been dead twice over, having been on Mandalore, if he was by himself. Absolutely. But Bo-Katan manages to rescue him, but while she's down there, she runs into Cthulhu! Not Cthulhu. It's, what do they call it? The Mythosaur, was it?
Yeah.
It's like the signature animal of Mandalore, which they apparently hunted to extinction, but somehow became their symbol animal, and apparently it's still alive. I don't know what that means in the grand scheme of things. I think it has to do with a prophecy or something about how Mandalore would come back with the Mythosaur or something like that. Point is, we saw the Mythosaur, so I guess it indicates that Mandalore is gonna come back to life in some way or form. Theoretically. So that's where we ended the second episode. And again, I'm still not feeling this season so far. Granted, this episode was better than the last one, but it just highlights a lot of the ridiculous mindset that Mando has about his creed. Like, I get it. He was inducted into what is basically, was it Death Watch? Yeah, it's pretty much confirmed at this point that his creed is Death Watch, but taken to the extreme. And I get it. He's pretty much brought up on that brainwashed mindset his whole life. So he, of course, would adhere to it. But you would think after all he'd been through since meeting Grogu, having his creed tested time again, his resolve, learning the true history of his people, you think he'd start to change his mind a little bit. And I sincerely hope that's where they're going in the direction of this season. Because if he keeps this by the end, I don't know. Like, that's just gonna leave a bad taste in my mouth. It's like, come on, Mando, you can't be that friggin' dumb. Like, I get there are people that are so deep in their religion that anyone who makes them question it, they pretty much just collapse in on themselves. They would sooner off themselves than admit to being wrong. I get there are people out there like that, but again, I would like to think better of Mando. And I mean, he's met people who are better than his creed, who are welcoming him as a friend, as a family member, as someone to be valued properly based on how much he helped them, as opposed to these assholes who just make him follow this strict set of rules and criticize him at every single point.
And it also seems like his sect of Mandalorian is basically dying out.
Well, no freaking wonder. I mean, every time we've seen them, they get themselves into a situation where, like, half of them end up getting either shot down or eaten or just wiped out in some way or form because they just stick so strictly to their creed instead of, you know, being adaptable with their surroundings.
Honestly, Din, it's time to move on. And I also kind of feel like they're hinting at some sort of relationship between him and Bo.
I can see it. I don't necessarily know if that's the direction they're going in. I guess we'll see. I mean, a lot of people are saying, like, oh, this is going to be the season Bo-Katan gets redeemed. And I'm like, redeemed from what? I get it when she started, when we first see her in Clone Wars, she's kind of the antagonist by virtue of her relation to Death Watch. But compare her mindset to her sisters, she was actually more logical than she was. Because with her sister Satine, she was a pacifist to the point where it almost made no sense. She was almost full-on hippie in that she had all these threats around her, all these threats to Mandalore, these people that obviously were untrustworthy, but she refused to do anything about it for the sake of not escalating violence. And I get it with Bo-Katan, she really wanted to keep the warrior side of Mandalore alive, just like her parents did, but almost to an extreme, like the way that Mando's creed has. But she's gotten better since then. In fact, she's willingly fought alongside Jedi who have been Mandalorian's enemies for the longest time. She's gone through like little personal arcs and stuff. By the time we see her in Mandalorian, the only real thing she has to learn is that she has to regain her confidence as a leader again and show that she doesn't have to abide by all these strict standards to be a good leader. So I guess that's where her arc is going to be in this season. Because we've already seen her kick major ass so far this one episode alone. So just imagine the whole season, her and Mando together. Pretty much her whole mission is going to be keep Mando from dying.
Yeah.
Because he keeps making these stupid ass decisions. So yeah, like I said, not a very good start in my opinion. I thought certain things were fascinating. It was interesting to check in on certain characters, see where they're at and all that, but I don't know. With the direction this seems to be going in, it's not hooking me right now. I'll still watch it, but I really hope it goes in the direction I think it's going in, just to make it somewhat interesting. And I want to see who the new baddie is now that apparently Moff Gideon's out of the picture now. At least I think he is. Because they said that he was like arrested and sent to like jail or something, so...
That doesn't necessarily mean he's out of the picture.
True. I mean, he's not the big baddie for this season, and he's not
He could always come back.
I hope so. Any excuse to see him, I will just relish it. So yeah, as in previous Mandalorian seasons, we're not going to learn the titles of them probably till the day they premiere, just to keep us guessing, keep us in suspense.
But in this case, we do intend to actually live react to the remaining episodes.
Yeah, like I said, we wanted to do this proper, and it would have been a big premiere had we been able to do this properly, but... You know how life is, especially in a life with COVID. But yeah, we have about 8 episodes for this season, I believe. Although I heard there was 12. I'm not certain. I'd have to double check. For now, the wiki says 8. So 2 down, 6 to go. We'll see how things go from here. But until next time, I'm Kat MacBerrie.
I'm Doug MacBerrie.
And we have spoken.